আসসালামু আলাইকুম and very good evening. যুক্তরাজ্যের সহ পৃথিবীর যে যেখানে বসে এনটিভি ইউরোপের রেগুলার প্রোগ্রাম কমিউনিটি ম্যাটার্স দেখছেন আপনাদের সবাইকে শুভেচ্ছা সহ স্বাগতম। বরাবরের মতো আজকে আপনাদের সাথে আছি আমি আদনান পাভেল। আপনারা যারা রেগুলারলি এই প্রোগ্রাম ফলো করেন আপনারা জানেন কমিউনিটি ম্যাটার্স আপনাদের অনুষ্ঠান, আপনাদের নিয়ে অনুষ্ঠান। আমরা সবসময় এমন সব টপিকে কথা বলার চেষ্টা করি যা কিনা ব্রিটিশ বাংলাদেশি কমিউনিটির উপর বা বাংলাদেশি কমিউনিটির উপর প্রভাব ফেলছে বা প্রভাব ফেলতে পারে অদূর ভবিষ্যতে। আজও তার ব্যতিক্রম নয়। আজকে আমরা কথা বলবো ডোমেস্টিক ভায়োলেন্স অ্যান্ড ইটস ইম্প্যাক্ট অন ফ্যামিলি লাইফ। এবং আমার সাথে আজকে উপস্থিত আছেন আমার হাতের ডান পাশে ব্যারিস্টার আয়েশা মিয়া। শি ইজ অ্যান এক্সপার্ট in family and civil law. She was, before she became barrister, she was independent domestic violence advisor as well. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you. On my left hand side, আমাদের সাথে উপস্থিত আছেন জনাব মাসুদ আহমেদ। মাসুদ ভাই is a he is an author, broadcaster, motivational speaker, community activist, and also imam in a mosque in Tower Hamlets, if I understand it correctly. Thank you.
On a road test, right? I go to different places.
Thank you very much, Masud bhai. আজকে আমাদের সাথে জয়েন করার জন্য আমরা জানি যে আপনি you are very busy, but thank you for coming today. Thank you both of you. So today we'll be talking about domestic violence and its impact on family life. So if I start with you, Barrister Aisha Mia, if you can give us some rough idea in terms of key facts and figures and statistics, what's happening in terms of domestic violence in UK, particularly in UK, particularly in London?
In terms of domestic violence, the Home Office estimates that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will be a victim of domestic violence at some point during their lives. It is very prevalent. It makes up for 33% of all crimes that are reported to the Metropolitan Police. In fact, it is more prevalent in some communities, in particular the South Asian community. So that is outlook nationwide. However, it affects certain communities more. The problem is with underreporting. It is said by the National Centre of Domestic Violence that 60 to 70% of domestically violent incidents are never reported. So just imagine 33% of crime is domestic abuse. So if everyone actually started reporting, it would be the majority of the crime that the police investigate. Historically, it's been very difficult to prosecute and investigate these crimes due to the complainants being quite reluctant to report. Of course, if it's against your husband or your brother or your father, it's very difficult to report matters.
Emotion plays a significant factor here, isn't it?
Yes, and we need to move away from the belief that domestic violence is only physical. So the Home Office definition for domestic violence extends to acts or an act of coercion, which is financial, emotional, psychological, physical, and financial. The financial aspect is quite prevalent because a victim is so disabled financially they can't see a life without their perpetrator.
I see. So thank you very much for that. I mean, you mentioned that particularly in South Asian community, these figures are quite significant. I mean, could you please tell us a little bit in terms of domestic violence, particularly in British Bangladeshi community? I mean, is it one of the major problem in British Bangladeshi community's family life?
Yes, it is. The Home Office is very aware that domestic violence, in particular with South Asian communities, has taken a different form in the form of honour-based violence. So very recently the Home Office has issued guidance to explain what it is. Honour-based violence and forced marriage has become a key issue, and now the courts are granting prevention of forced marriage orders. So the issue of domestic violence is so tied up with the family's honour, and that's why it is playing a huge role in the breakdown.
People do not want to report it because of their family prestige and family tradition.
And historically, if a girl was assaulted by her father for having a boyfriend, it was considered it's the right thing to do because he's stopping her from dishonoring the family. But why is the honor always held on the women's shoulders and not the men's? So
I see.
There's
do you think there's a cultural element there as well?
certainly.
And education as well?
Yes, definitely. In terms of honor-based violence and domestic violence, it always seems to be coming from one side. It's always the man versus the woman. Women overwhelmingly are the victims. So it is definitely cultural. It plays part in our historical treatment of women in South Asian culture.
I see.
And in some respects, women's role or perceived role in Islam. So it's misused to oppress women.
I think some people try to define the very definition of giving right to women in our religion, Islam, in a different way that
Yes.
actually that helps them to. I think somehow they are misunderstood
Yes.
how it is actually Islam that
Empowers.
empowered
Yes.
before the Western modern civilization actually.
So how
isn't
old
it?
is Islam now? Almost 1500 years old. At its creation and at its birth, it gave women the right to own property. It gave women the right to conduct business. It gave women the right to earn her own money and keep it for herself. Women only acquired the right to own their own property just over half a century ago. So even in the 50s and 60s, a woman needed a counter-signatory by the way of her husband. So Islam
I think it's because of, I think there are a certain cultural element
Yes.
there instead of religious
Yes,
element.
it's a
don't you think?
patriarchal society. So it's tied up with the issue of the way women are generally treated, in particular in Bangladesh. So it goes hand in hand with a number of issues, but the base is just treating women differently and treating women less than men.
Thank you for that. We'll listen more from you, particularly how how domestic violence is impacting family life
Yes.
here in UK. So if I come to you, Masood Bhai, you've been doing lots of work in this particular area in family life, domestic violence. You are a motivational speaker. So could you please tell us that she mentioned that lack of education, lack of cultural understanding, lack of some people that try to somehow they misrepresent Islam, somehow they misunderstood Islam. So could you please tell us a little bit about domestic violence? If you can give us some facts and figure, what's particularly happening in UK, particularly in our community, British Bangladeshi community?
Well, I think figures are always behind the current situation. So I think what my colleague over there, Asma Mia, Aisha Mia, has said is that the statistics are there, but at the end of the day, what we have to look at is that each one of these incidents are affecting people's lives, and domestic violence is one of those issues which actually not only affects the immediate victim, but it affects people around them. So, for example, in most cases, children are affected. And then what that does is it affects future generations as well, because it creates a mindset that is negative, that is demeaning, that is undermining. And that's why I think we have to find ways to root out domestic violence from all societies. And it is not a problem just in one community, any one community. It's a problem that exists throughout society, and we have to find a common solution.
One of the major cause of homelessness is domestic violence, actually.
Yes.
And it also has significant economic impact as well. I was looking into statistics. It said that £5.5 billion everywhere that's been spent because of tackling domestic violence only in England. So it has significant economic impact as well.
Of course. And that's why what was traditionally known as domestic violence is no longer accepted as the correct definition, because domestic abuse is probably a better term than anything else, because what it does, it captures all these issues. So a lot of the time you'll find that people who become victims of domestic violence, there is a process, you know, the perpetrator, the abuser, usually controls them emotionally, psychologically, and also there is a big part of it is economical. You know, they create a dependence. And those who haven't got much money or anything else, I mean, I have been working as a social worker for more than 30 years. And what I found, I mean, in a very recent experience, I found one couple, they were not really married or anything, but they were in a relationship. This is a Bangladeshi Muslim family, couple. And the man was so abusive that he left her bruised. Potentially she could have life-threatening injuries. It was so shocking for me to be in a witness, in the sense that I was talking to her and she had all these injuries and doing an assessment to try and safeguard her children. And what shocked me is that this man was at the same time using religion, using Islam to justify what he was doing. Not only that, he was also so cunning and made her so dependent on him that after abusing her, when she was suffering from the pain and everything else, he came back and taught her some prayers, how to relieve pain from your body. I mean, I thought, how crazy do you have to be in that kind of situation?
People will be surprised that
and unfortunately, this woman, this lady, who is otherwise quite intelligent, she fell for it, and she felt that this man is very loving. He cares for me, and of course he wants the best for me. And by punishing me, by hitting me, by doing all these things, he's doing me a service. So he's brainwashed her in that way. And I don't want anybody watching this program taking ideas from this discussion that they should do these kind of things. If you are caught, you will be punished in the most severe way by the law, and you will also face severe punishment all round. And the biggest punishment is that if you have children, they suffer long term when they are witnessing violence, when they are witnessing abuse. And emotional abuse is more harmful than even physical abuse.
It has long-term
it has long-term impact on people. Psychologically it damages them, and emotionally it creates instability, it creates dependence, it creates, you know, it just destroys your self-esteem, which is what all of us we need to think positively, to be ambitious, to aspire to bigger and better things. All of that gets knocked if somebody doesn't treat you well. So from any angle you look at, this is such an important topic, and we all need to take it seriously. And the biggest, I think, disappointment I have is that many people witness these things, they know about these things, and they stay quiet. They are the silent majority.
That's what you said. I mean,
Yes.
not too many people report.
Yeah.
Report it.
Individuals who are victims, they don't report, but there are people around. I mean, these individuals don't exist in vacuum. It's not just men or women, I'm saying. Anybody who's subjected to abuse or anything of that nature, there are other people around them. They need to be proactive. They need to give them the encouragement, give them the support, and say, look, step up, go and report it, do something about it, don't tolerate this kind of abuse.
Thank you very much, both of you. We'll listen more from both of you. We need to go for a quick break. সুপ্রিয় দর্শক, আজকে আমরা কথা বলছি ডোমেস্টিক ভায়োলেন্স অ্যান্ড ইটস ইমপ্যাক্ট অন ফ্যামিলি লাইফ। আমাদের সাথেই থাকবেন, আমরা যাব একটা বিরতিতে।